I think this is my all-time favorite flag to make. So if you're curious now to find out what it is, you're gonna wanna stick around. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Edgar with AA Timber and Pine, and in this video I want to share with you how to make the Pledge of Allegiance flag without the CNC. You don't need a CNC to be able to make this flag, but I will let you know up front that you are going to need a vinyl cutter. So if you're on the fence on whether or not you should buy a vinyl cutter, if you can't afford the CNC just yet, go ahead and get the vinyl cutter. It's going to change your flag building, or maybe anything that you're working on right now, whatever your niche is, it's going to change it for the better. So just like in all my other videos, I'm going to take you step by step on how to do it. I'm going to be using the Cameo Studio program because I have a studio. I'm going to be using the studio. Oh my gosh. I'm going to be using the Silhouette Studio Business Edition because I'm using a Silhouette Cameo as my vinyl cutter. But regardless of what program that you're using, you may not be using Silhouette Studio. Use whatever program that you're using. So just follow the steps, apply the same principles, and you should be good. In this video, you're gonna notice that I carved my union with my CNC. Again, don't worry about that. If you have a Dremel, go ahead and make your union with the Dremel. Pretty much everybody started with a Dremel if you're a flag builder and now are using a CNC. So go ahead and create your union with the Dremel if you have it. Before jumping into the video real quickly, I do want to say thank you very much for all the support, for all the comments, for all the subscriptions, for all the likes. If you are getting value out of the channel, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. And let's just jump into the video.
To start this flag, I cut down some 1x material to 1-inch strips. You'll need a minimum of 16 1-inch strips and 1 2-inch strip. Once those are cut to size, I like to look them over and organize them based on their grain pattern. I personally like the more open grain pattern to be my white stripes. If the grain has a tighter pattern with many rings, I prefer those to be red. I don't think they're as nice. I also like to use stripes that look defective or have weak knots in them as my union stripes because I can cut those areas away and keep the good part of the strip. So that's a tip to keep in mind. Once I have them all organized how I like them, I then go over them with my orbital sander and a 220 sanding block. Once they're sanded, I like to pull out all my red stripes and torch them. I'm only going to torch my red stripes right now because I want to get them really torched. I don't want to torch my white stripes since I'm going to have black vinyl on them. If I were to overly torch them, then the black text would not be visible. So you want to torch the white stripes separately and very lightly. For my red stripes, I'm currently using Minwax's Red Barn, and I apply using an old t-shirt. For best results, I recommend you apply a heavy coat of your red. The dimensions that I use for the union are in the description below. Also, if you're a new CNC user or just curious on how I carve my unions, there is a link in the description for that instructional video where you can get more details. So I've already showed you guys in a separate video how to correctly size your union stripes. So I'm just going to show you really quickly what I do. I'm going to use this one as my template stripe, and I'm also going to use this number 7 as my template stripe. So stripes number 8 and 7 are my template stripes. I'm going to go ahead and bring everything close, tight, everything tight. I'm going to make sure that this is butted up here on this edge here with the union. All right, and then I'm going to make sure that this stripe number 7 is all the way up to the union as well here. And then now I'm going to go ahead and make a mark over here on number 7. Just like that. And I'll go ahead and cut number 7 and then make sure that it is correctly cut. And if it is correctly cut, I'll then use number 7 as my template for all these over here, 1 through 6. Let's just go ahead and do that now. So just cut it. Let's go ahead and make sure it's sized correctly. Perfect match. There's no bump here. There's no bump over here. Everything is lined up correctly, so I'll use number 7 as my template. After everything was cut to size for this build, I carved the stars after everything was sized correctly. There's no right or wrong time to carve your union so long as it's available for the stripe sizing part of the process that we just went over. When you look at an American flag, the union is on the left-hand side. But when you attach everything, everything needs to be flipped to the right so that the union is on the right-hand side. Try not to make this mistake, but if you build flags long enough, it is inevitable. I like to use 3 F-clamps when making my rustic flags regardless of the size. The first one is always placed at the joint between the union and the union stripes. The other 2 will go on each end. Quick tip here is don't tighten the clamps too quickly. Make sure to use even clamping pressure. If you clamp too tight too fast, you'll end up pulling the union away and you'll have to start over, so take your time. Once everything is clamped and aligned as it should, I like to put downward pressure to make sure that the stripes are laying flat. I also use cinder blocks to add weight to flatten everything. A jig here would be nice, but this works too. With everything ready to be secured, grab some of the extra strips that you milled, including the 2-inch strip that I suggested. I like to use one of these strips as a template. I place it on the back near the top and then make a mark on where I would like to cut. And I'll use this one as the template for the remaining 3. I like to use a total of 4 back strips. I don't glue the individual stripes together, but I will glue the back strips and attach with brad nails as you see here. With the back strips attached, I like to torch the back to complete the rustic look and also hide some of the stain that may have gotten on the back. I take some time to lightly torch the front as well and make sure not to darken the white stripes too much. You'll want to do some final touch-ups at this point. I ended up brad nailing this union to the CNC wasteboard, so I filled the nail holes with glue, filled them with sawdust, and restained. With that completed, it was time to seal the flag. I like to add a coat of spray polyurethane to my stars first. It allows for the stars to pop, but I also don't have polyurethane flooding inside them, which tends to happen when you try to seal them when using a foam brush. I seal the rest of the flag with Varathane's water-based polyurethane. Since we're going to add vinyl, you're going to need a minimum of 2 coats of polyurethane to allow for the vinyl to adhere better. If you weren't going to add any vinyl, just add the hanging wire and this project would be done. But since we're adding the vinyl text, let me take you through those steps using Silhouette Studio to get it cut on my Silhouette Cameo. If you're starting out in flag building, or if you want to add customizations to your flags, you definitely need to get a Cameo or any vinyl machine within your budget. It opens so much doors for me starting out, and I highly recommend them. Alright guys, so jumping into Silhouette Studio, this is the business edition. And I am using Silhouette Studio, and I just let you know so that if you are following along and you have Silhouette Studio, just go ahead and follow along with me. But if you don't have Silhouette Studio, don't worry about it. Use whatever vinyl program you're using. The principles are the same. It doesn't matter what program you're using. Follow along and listen to what I'm doing and apply it to your program of choice. I'm not going to show you every single line created. I'm just going to go ahead and show you 2 different lines, but just go ahead and apply this to every single line that or stripe that needs text. The very first thing that you want to do is come over here to the left hand side, and we're going to create a vector. We're going to go ahead and click a rectangular vector and click and drag and just create any vector of any size. It doesn't matter. With the vector created and selected, we're going to go over here to the right hand side and we're going to click on this transform panel, what Silhouette Studio calls transform panel. And within the transform panel, we're going to click on the scale option. Once we click on the scale option, we're going to specify the dimensions. Let's assume that this stripe is going to be for the short stripe in the union. So the width, let's assume it's maybe 13 inches. The height for the stripe is 1.5 inches. We do know that for a fact. We're going to copy and paste it, and we're going to resize this one to be 36 inches wide, because we do know that the bottom stripes, or the last 6 stripes, are going to be 36 inches wide. So we're going to go ahead and create one of those as well. Once our stripes are created, we're going to enter some text, or we're going to add some text to this stripe. So to create the text in Silhouette Studio, we're going to click on this A, and we're going to click on text. We're going to click it once, and then we get this cursor. We get this type of cursor. We're going to go ahead and click on the screen. We get this blue blinking line. We're going to go ahead and enter our text. With caps on, I'm going to type in, "I pledge allegiance." It didn't stay as one single line, so what I have to do is I have to come over here to this colored area and make sure that I hover over it and I get this double arrow. I'm going to click and hold and just drag to the right and just extend the line. I don't like this particular text, so I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to change the text. I'm going to use Times New Roman. The next thing that I want to do is I want to bring it into the stripe, and I want to select it, and then I want to resize it. So I'm going to just click and drag until I get it bigger. Once I have it to a size that I think would look good, I have the text selected, I hold shift and I select the box as well. I'm going to then come back over to the transform panel, and in the transform panel options, I have the align option. I'm going to align it horizontally and vertically. Now my text is centered within this stripe. Once you get the text to be sized the way that you like it and fit within the stripe, go ahead and copy and paste that text. This is the way that we're going to keep consistently sized text throughout the stripes. We're going to copy it, and we're going to edit this one single line of text. We're going to double click on it, and we're going to do a final line. Well, let's go ahead and do the example for the final text. let's go ahead and enter with liberty and justice for all. The same thing here as before, it didn't stay as a single line, so I'm going to come over here to this area here, click and hold, and just extend it. With the text completed, I'm going to select it, hold shift, select the stripe, and the align option, I'm going to align it horizontally and vertically. And that is how you would create the text for the Pledge of Allegiance flag. So go ahead and play around with the sizing. You may want to make this large so it covers more of that stripe. This is just an example of how to create the text and keeping the text exactly the same size throughout the stripes. Now that you know how to do it, go ahead and complete it for the remaining stripes. Let's talk about how you're going to cut it on your machine. In my machine particularly, I have a 12 by 12 cutting area. I can only cut to 12 inches wide and only 12 inches long if I were to use the cutting mat. So let's go ahead and go into our page setup for a little bit, or a setup panel, and let's talk about a few things. First, I cannot cut my text in this horizontal direction. It's going to exceed the 12-inch wide cutting area because this bottom text is already 20 inches wide. So what I have to do is I have to make it vertical. I have to make the text vertical. So I'm going to just change its orientation. Once its orientation is complete, I have to do some changes to the cutting mat. In this particular case, I already have selected none for the cutting mat, but if you have one of these options selected, go ahead and deselect or select none for the cutting mat. I believe that most vinyl cutters come with some sort of mat. Well, the media size is typically 12 by 12, right? That's the media size of the cutting mat. The cutting mat is 12 by 12 in most cases, but I'm going to select custom. I have to change my orientation or ensure that my orientation is in the portrait orientation, not the landscape. So go ahead and click on portrait. And then here in the dimensions, I'm going to keep my width at 12 because I can't cut any further or anything greater than 12 inches wide. But as far as my height, I'm going to pick a number that is larger than the dimensions of my longest strip. So right now in this example, the strip is 20 inches, 20 and a half. I'm going to just select an arbitrary number that is greater than that. So in this case, let's go with 30. When it comes down to cutting my vinyl to size, I know for a fact that my text here is going to be 20 and a half inches wide or long. So I need to have vinyl that will allow for that to be cut. So after trial and error, my recommendation is to exceed 22 inches. I would suggest that you cut vinyl, in this case, let's just use this as the example, cut vinyl that is 25 inches long. That ensures that while it's cutting, there is still some material being held down by the cutting machine. If you cut, let's say for example, to 21 inches, when it gets down to the very edges of the cut, the actual machine has nothing to grab onto. The vinyl will be fed through the cutter and it will mess up your cut. So you want to make sure that you have vinyl that is long enough to make sure that it's still being held by the machine. And that's why I think 25 inches in this example would be more than enough. So that is how you would set up not only the text, but also set up or plan for the actual cutting execution of the vinyl. So with that said, go ahead and apply that to all the stripes and go ahead and get that cut out. Let's go ahead and jump back into the build. I didn't actually record how to run this cameo or how to place the vinyl into the machine, since there are plenty of videos out there available for the different machines that you are able to pick up. And you may not have this machine, so I didn't want to go into all those details. My cameo is actually a little bit outdated, so it probably isn't the best example either. But if you'd like to see that part, let me know in the comments and I may be able to make something happen. One of the downsides of using vinyl is the time that it takes to weed the vinyl. Weeding is the process of removing all the extra vinyl that you don't need and leaving behind the text in this case. It is a good time to watch YouTube videos while you're doing this, but make sure that you don't mess up the vinyl and have to recut something. With the vinyl ready, get your transfer paper and cut it to size and place the text onto the flag. Another quick tip here is to not push down on your text right away. Once you do that, it's pretty much set and you'll have to remove individual letters if you need to make adjustments. By lightly placing the vinyl on the stripe, you'll be able to readjust if you need to. With the vinyl placed on the flag, add one more coat of polyurethane and you're done. And here's the final product, guys. What do you guys think?